Continuing our reading in Abraham Hannibal and the Raiders of the Sands by Francis Summers Cox, Chapter 9, Journey to the Emperor, and this is in December, the year 1702. Then the bustle of the town seemed to spread even more to the palace on the hill. Servants were up and down to the markets and warehouses 5 times a day. The Lord of the Sea was around more than usual, and strode around giving orders for packing and loading, and a new corral was built outside the yard wall. Young horses were brought in from the countryside every evening, and stabled in the corral every night. Every night there were more of them. One evening Fairs called Abraham to his palace. The Lord of the Sea sat cross-legged on his throne. The boy squatted at his feet. "Little monk, let's see what you know of the business of ruling. What do you make of all the preparations here these days?" asked Fairs. Abraham frowned. "Are you taking presents to the Emperor of Gondar, like last year, Father?" Fairs smiled. "In a way, it's the time of the yearly tribute. Each year, the great lords of the empire have to pay part of our wealth to the emperor, and I am one of the wealthiest. Do you know why?" Abraham shook his head. "Every grain of food, every ounce of ivory or gold that leaves Ethiopia by sea has to go through my domain on its way to the seaport of Massawa. So does every luxury foreign article, every gun, every bead and bottle that is brought into the empire through the port. The merchants pay me a tax on all the goods going in or out. Apart from the taxes the farmers pay me on their crops, this is the chief source of my wealth, and every year the emperor takes his share of that. Here, our tribute is mostly horses, guns, and rich cloth. I leave in 2 days' time for Gondar to present my tribute." A thought that had long puzzled Abraham came back to him. "Father, may I ask you a question? Does Massawa belong to you?" "Why do you ask?" "Well, you're called the Lord of the Sea, and so I think the sea and the coast and the ports ought to belong to you." "I think the emperor and I would agree with you, little monk. Well, once upon a time they did belong to the Lord of the Sea and his emperor, but the Turks came in their ships from far away. They had guns and we did not, and they took the sea coast away from us, so that now it belongs to their sultan. The name of the Lords of the Sea never changes. But because one day perhaps we shall be Lords of the Sea again. But enough of the old days. How would you like to come to Gondar with me?" Abraham's eyes and mouth grew wide. "More than anything else in the world, Father." "It's settled then." Of course, there was the dark side. There was no question of Lahia being allowed to go, and Abraham had to say goodbye to his mother, too, and Granny Esther, and to Nimrod. He and Lahia sat in a shady corner of the hot courtyard, where Nimrod lay dozing at the end of his chain, each of them rubbing one of his big soft ears. "You will look after him, won't you, Lahia?" "He will be grown up fat and happy when you come back, and very fierce." "Not toward me. Never. He'll remember me." The day Abraham set off, before first light, Lahia and Makeda didn't come down to the town to see him off. They hugged each other goodbye without a word inside the dark hut, so that no one would see their tears. Then his sister and mother made their way to the yard wall, where it towered high above the track that led inland. They climbed up and sat with their arms around each other, watching the long caravan toil south until the last donkey was out of sight and the sun blazed fiercely through the thin, high air of Ethiopia. And that's the end of chapter 9.